All right, so we got Lucius coming up next. He's going to be talking about the difference between meditation and mindfulness and the role of mindfulness in the recovery process. So before we get started with that chat, we'll just have a little bit of an intro of it's a little snippet as well from the podcast that Lucius and I did maybe a month ago, leading up to this summit. He's really an amazing guy, long, like 16 years in recovery. So much wisdom that he has to share.
And that's the point too that I think is important, because I've been talking about purpose and people are like, well, I found some of my purpose, and it's like, it's just like sitting for a mindfulness practice. We can sit and we can breathe and we can become aware, but then someone who is experienced can say, do it this way, just shift it just a little bit. This way, use the leverage of your pain in that leg and just shift it a little bit. And so we may, some people that may be a part of my group or, joining at some point may be like, well, I already found my passions. And I'm one of those people. I was teaching I had a mindfulness program at the school where I was teaching. I was teacher of the year. I was going to get my administrative license to teach at a recovery high school. I was sponsoring people. I was, had all this years of recovery. And then it came crashing down because I wasn't in true alignment. I was still chasing that outward expression. And so, but without doing that deep dive and having someone who's experienced to really shift and direct and say, let's do it this way a little bit, then it's a long, hard process that doesn't have to happen. You can have somebody to be there to guide and to hold and to help direct that attention.
Oh, I took myself. Okay, welcome.
Hey, Nathan.
It's good to see you again, brother.
You too.
Welcome to the Recovering Me Virtual Summit.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we're happy to have you as well. So Lucius is, I'm saying your name correct, right, Lucius?
You are, yes, Lucius.
All right, so Lucius is the founder of Mindful Recovery Coach and Mindful Schools certified mindfulness instructor, and he brings 14 years of recovery and a degree in Comparative Religious Studies and 16 years of meditation practice. So Lucius facilitates personal transformation journeys for those seeking recovery, in long-term recovery, and their families and friends. So with the knowledge that each person has a still small voice inside, waiting for outward expression, Lucius cultivates experiences for one's purpose to manifest in the world. And along with personal coaching, seminars, and retreats, Lucius provides training in mindfulness techniques for recovery, as well as training people who want to facilitate mindful recovery groups.
That sounds great.
Sign me up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I've learned so much already from the previous speakers. I mean, they've already told my whole story and shared all the things that I do. No, it's great. It's wonderful. I love how Jesse was talking about habit stacking. I didn't call it that. I just call it I do more and more and more. So I love that term. If you noticed in the bio, I started meditating way before I got clean and got into recovery. And so, just like our last speaker was talking about, I was doing meditation, but not very skillfully. So, so I really like Mohandas Gandhi, you know, um, his autobiography is called The Story of My Experiments with Truth. And, you know, like Jesse was talking about, a lot of my recovery has just been experimenting and trying different things. And really, you know, all of the things that the speakers have been already talking about today, I've experimented with in some way, which is great. I do the cold showers, you know, I do meditation, and have delved into the nutrition aspect of it. So that's just, yeah, I'm grateful to be here.
Well, we're grateful to have you, man. I know when I first had this idea, I had a couple of speakers in mind that were here today, and you were really like the first person who I kind of like stalked on social media, and you know, I was really looking for someone who had a lot of experience training other coaches. And because I really believe that the role of, you know, whether you call it a guru or a mentor or a sponsor, you know, if you look back in all of the spiritual traditions, this idea of having someone who's sort of external that guides you through the process, you know, even as sensei in martial arts or whatever, I think it's really important. And so when I was looking for someone who's doing that type of thing, and I literally found you on Facebook, and we connected right away. We had an amazing Zoom chat, and we've had a couple of conversations up to now. And I love what you're doing, and I love your heart and your energy. I know that you love and care about people, and you know, the work that you're doing is really amazing. So I salute you for all the work that you're doing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and you know, I think kind of thinking about what I might talk about today, you know, it's like, yeah, I have a sponsor, I have a mentor, I have a spiritual guide, I have all of these things, you know, and I've experimented with going it by myself, doing it by myself, and it is so challenging. It's near impossible. I'm not saying that it is impossible, but it's near impossible. And we have a shared community of people that have information. And so really, you know, what I find myself doing is you know, taking ideas, experimenting with them, and seeing, okay, does it work? Do I need to change something a little bit to make it work? You know, like Julie was talking about at the beginning, she said, you know, it's either fear or love. Well, for me, like, I tried that, and I didn't exactly fit exactly. So how do I make that fit? And it's like, I still feel scared every single day, you know, like, I'm scared about the work I'm doing, and if it's going to be good enough, and if I'm going to get it to enough people. And, you know, I used to really think that there was something wrong with me because of that. And I think that fed into my addiction. But really, I just say, fuck it. Like, I'm going to have the fear. And that's part of what the mindfulness has taught me, is like, I'm a super emotional person. I've always been an emotional person. I was always the kid that, oh, he's a sensitive kid, you know, he's a sensitive boy, you know, the girls loved it, you know, I was always friend material because I was so sensitive. But, you know, like, I am still an emotional person. Someone told me the other day, you know, I was sharing a story, and it was like, yeah, I was crying. He's like, well, Lucius, you're a really emotional person. And I was like, you know, at first I took offense to it, and I'm like, you know what, I am an emotional person. So how do I use that to my benefit? And you know what, I'm scared every single day. I have a level of discontent inside of me, and I used to use that an obstacle to hurt myself, and today, like, I use it to motivate me.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I love the authenticity and the vulnerability. You know, even in the Facebook groups that you run, I'm always looking to see what you're sharing each day. And I think that's so important. You know, I think when it comes to recovery, you know, one of the things that I think really works about the whole, like, the AA and being in the rooms is, you know, we don't learn how to recover through ideas. You know, we learn from other people's stories.
Yeah.
And, you know, you go in there, and a lot of times what happens is you hear somebody's story and you realize you're not alone. It's not just me. There are other people that are really suffering and struggling. And it's so, I think it's so refreshing to hear you say you got, 14 years of being in recovery and you're still scared every day, and you
Yeah.
embrace that process.
Yeah, and I mean, when the quarantine, everything shut down, I was going through a divorce, and I was living out in the country by myself, very isolated. And I have, like, connection has become a huge part of my recovery. And so it would, I didn't have phone service, I didn't have internet. So it was like, okay, I'm left with nothing but myself, and I teach mindfulness, and so, and it was scary, it was sad. I was dealing with a whole lot of stuff, but it was like, okay, I have this time, how can I use it? So I developed half-day retreats for myself, and had it structured with little bit of talks that I would listen to, and so I used it. And that's, for me in recovery, it's like I've used the obstacles that have been presented to me to propel me forward.
Mm. That's such a powerful message, because I think, yeah, I mean, resilience is such a big part of the recovery process, because
Yeah.
it's going to suck a lot.
It is life. And there, if I could say a few things to people who are new on the path, it's like, you're going to have feelings are not going to go away. Actually, they're part of our limbic system. So when we bring in information, also attached to that is emotion. And
Mm.
so we're going to have emotions. It's not, I'm nowhere near what I ever expected recovery would be like, or where I would be in my life. But it's not horrible. Like, I have a wonderful life. It is completely different than I thought, but oh my gosh, it's such a blessing. Even the times where, like, I just don't know if I can make it. Like, I find that those are the times that, if I can make it through, like, it's worth it. It is so worth it.
Yeah, that's powerful. And so obviously we just had George that talked about meditation quite a bit, and his sort of his brand of meditation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up for me a bunch of times when I was doing my research on you was, the focus on mindfulness. And you even call yourself the business that you're running is the mindful
Recovery.
recovery
Yeah.
coach.
Mindful recovery coach. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you make a distinction between meditation and mindfulness, and how does that play out in your work?
So, and I've done many different kinds of meditation, but really, if we break it down, meditation just means to bring focus to something. It's kind of like an umbrella term, much like education. I'm in education too. And you say education, what do you mean by education? Well, under that umbrella of education, we can talk about public schools, private schools, religious education. We can talk about secondary schools. We can talk about, watching a YouTube. That is a tutorial video. That's education. So when we talk, we say that big word meditation, a lot of people, from, just kind of societal stuff, think, oh, of the 60s and hippies, and that's fine, and mantra meditation and stuff, which has become part of our societal kind of shared knowledge. But meditation really just means we're focusing on something. And so under the umbrella of, meditation, we have, like the Vedic, we have mantra meditation, we have religious education, meditation, prayer would be under that form, but it can span under meditation, could be just thinking about philosophy, or, like my granny used to tell me, I've been studying on you. She was thinking about me. When we think about someone, we're meditating on them. We're bringing them into our focus. So I think there's a lot of confusion about it, and so what I do is a specific kind of meditation. And I don't usually use the term meditation because it can become distracting. But mindfulness, the kind of mindfulness that I do is, it is there's not a belief system tied to it. You know, there's a lot of wonderful programs out there that are spiritual or religious, and I love those things. But there are a lot of people like me who, you know, like I mean, I have a degree in religious studies. I love learning. I love experimenting and practicing different things. I also am deeply rooted in science, and I'm very skeptical. And I don't like to be told what to do, you know? So,
Amen.
and so, you know, I've done a lot of different kinds of teachings of different kinds of meditations before, but I've really intentionally honed in on the mindfulness because you can add it to whatever practice that you're already doing. But if you are an atheist, agnostic, Christian, Buddhist, whatever, you can adapt it to what you're doing already. So, you know, mindfulness is really being intentional. And we've heard that in several of our speakers already, bringing that intentionality and awareness to our present moment without judgment, you know, and judgment will arise, but, you know, once again, becoming aware of it and bringing it back to this moment.
Yeah. And I don't know if you, I heard in one of the talks that you did in one of your groups, you mentioned a specific time. I think I asked you about on the podcast as well, but you mentioned a specific time when you were a teacher and you were at school, right? And you were having like a really shitty day or something, and one of the students acted up, and you shared about that experience as kind of a metaphor for, you know, the work that you do. And I thought that was really powerful. So do you remember, do you know what I'm talking about?
So I was in the midst of learning about mindfulness and how to bring it to students. And, you know, I had my established practice that I would do in the morning and the afternoon, and it was going wonderfully, but I wasn't having that integration like I'd hoped into my daily life. And I had a student that I really was struggling with. I had built a great relationship with her. You know, she would come in and say, "Hey, Mr. Irvin, I love you," you know, and she did. I loved her. But then she would come in some days, and I mean, I could tell she was checked out, and there was a lot of behavioral issues. And so I was trying to figure out how to apply mindfulness with her in the moment. And, you know, I thought about how I might respond to her and thank her for, you know, reminding me to be mindful. Cause you know, there's ways to remind ourselves, you know, like I put it on my watch, you know, to remind myself, oh, wait, I'm not mindful right now. You know, my mind is somewhere else. And so I wanted her to be my reminder to come back and breathe and connect with that compassion that I so cultivate and love to give to other people. And she got up in the middle of class, got in my face, started yelling, screaming at me, and I forgot. I was not mindful. And I started to walk to the back of the class where my desk was. And at that time, my desk was closed off. And I have a problem, my own trauma of people being, you know, coming at me and me being closed off. So I was starting to get triggered, and I remembered, oh, wait, she's reminding me. And instead of saying thank you to her, my thank you was I was going to sit still and just smile. And the whole class was like, "Oh, Mr. Irvin!" You know, they had seen me, you know, my frantic state, and they just saw how I changed too, because I remembered, wait, this student is not me. She has pain. And I was able to step back into my body, you know, because Jesse had made a quote about you know, our lost connection to our body. And I reestablished my connection with my body, reestablished my purpose with my inside, and then I was able to just smile and not react.
Yeah, That's beautiful, man. And I think it's so, because that's what I love about mindfulness is it really bringing it into the moment. And when you have specific situations like that, I think it makes it really powerful, because life is not going to stop being life. You're going to keep being confronted by these situations. And it's so powerful because that could have easily gone another way, right?
Yeah.
And we have these automatic reactions to life. And that's what I love about the mindfulness practice is if you can go in and hone these different responses, you can change the way that you behave towards other people, the way that you react to circumstances. And that's how you can make better decisions.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think that's what I have to bring to the world in a unique way, because I have teachers and I've listened to, podcasts and gone on retreats and I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take what they've said and I'll try to apply it. And I'm like, it just doesn't work exactly how you're saying it does, So it's like, and that's where I think that my experience in recovery and just all of the various things that I've done in my life has given me the ability to, okay, well, it doesn't work exactly, but, I need to switch it just a little bit and add this. And so, if someone tries to sit down to practice meditation or mindfulness or whatever, you got that 30, I do that with groups where it's like that 30-second and everybody's like, oh, I feel so peaceful, but extend that for a minute or 5 minutes or 20 minutes. And most people feel like they're going insane. And so it's like, and I'm the person who felt and continues to sometimes feel insane when I sit down. I don't always get blissed out. I don't, like it's not always, oh, this is great, so, but I found some ways to deal with that uncomfortableness, that uneasiness. And so I think that's kind of my unique bringing to the world is, some of those insights that I've had about, okay, you're uncomfortable. Wonderful. So this is what you can do to shift a little bit to make it at least bearable. And so that you can continue to sustain it so that you can reap the benefits at some point.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think there's a lot of people that are home right now and they may not think about it, right? But
Yeah.
that feeling of uneasiness comes in, there's no awareness. And so it may not be drugs and alcohol or pornography or these different
Yeah.
things. It might be Netflix. It
Yeah.
might be technology. It might be something, right? But until we train ourselves to get aware of that feeling and come up with a positive more game plan, we're still being at the effect of our emotions.
Well, and I think that's, where George really had it right. It's like this stuff is the epitome, like it is the superstar of recovery, because I don't know. I mean, I had done different kinds of meditations and had different levels of success with it. But part of it was I always thought that if I was thinking or if I had emotions or if I felt uncomfortable and just wanted to get up, like there was something wrong with me. And it wasn't until I got to mindfulness where it was like that, no, that's all right. That's wonderful. How do we learn to accept that? How do we learn to continue to embrace ourselves and show ourselves compassion despite all of the things that are coming up and arising within us? And and so having 11 years, I can't remember how much I had when I started really diving into the mindfulness. I had a level of recovery that most people don't ever even see, and I still wasn't completely content. And so adding that additional aspect really helped round it out.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, even I think Jesse was saying he had like 9 years or something before he found cold showers and wrote the book
Yeah.
and got really into that. So that's an important message. So I think sometimes, because mindfulness oftentimes has this aspect of kind of being the observer of your experience, right? Kind of like what do they call it? Like the watcher. There's like a separation. So
Yeah.
does that detachment that happens during the mindfulness process, does that mean being like unemotional and removed, or what does that kind of detachment means? Because I think that's also another confusion that comes in.
Yeah, and I mean, you could, there's different ways to think of it. Sure, like as the observer, because really we're just observing different aspects of ourselves. So when it's like a tangled ball of yarn, like it's difficult for me to see the individual parts when they're all entangled. But with
Mm,
mindfulness, I can start pulling out strings at a time and observing, so I'm focusing on my breath. What does that feel like? What's the experience? So it's not detachment in the form of, like I don't care or I'm uninvolved, because that just means you're an asshole. Like that, that means you're a bad boyfriend or something. We're not talking about that kind of detachment. We're actually talking about engaging on a much more intimate level,
mm,
because I am, instead of this ball now, I'm taking the individual strands and giving each of those strands more attention.
mm,
But I'm not entangled with the whole ball. So that's where I'm detaching from the mess that could be and is or was. And it's still, I mean, when I sit, that mess is still there because I start thinking about the past, or projecting on the future. So it's there. So, but I'm like, okay, it's there. That's fine. I'm going to take a string. I'm going to really engage with my emotions right now and notice them, or, bring some heartfulness to myself or someone else, so I'm pulling that string. So it's a way of bringing more compassion, not less.
mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I've never heard
Yeah.
it explained that way. So it's like it's taking a step back and being aware so that you can be more, so you can pay more attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, so you mentioned earlier that you have like a sponsor and you have a coach and you have a spiritual guide like that, right? So you have
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about like what's the role of those people in your life in the process? Because I think that's such a critical component to the recovery process.
I like to think about it as, we're all climbing the cliff. We're on the side of a cliff and we're trying desperately to make it to the top, whatever that top might be for each of us. And these people that for a simple term, mentor, are, we're all on the cliff, but they're just a little bit further above me,
Mm,
and they've experienced what I've experienced most of the time. And and they can say, hey Lucius, like that way right there, you might not, my experience with going that path wasn't so great, but there's another handhold over here that's really helpful.
mm,
And it's not that I won't go over and try that way. But I have people that are just, they're just people. They're people that have experienced it. And the same for me in my coaching. I'm just a person. And but the benefit is I have a lot of experience with a lot of different things.
mm,
And so I can say, what are your needs, what are your strengths, because we all have strengths. I am a real proponent for each of us, no matter where we're at in our lives and in our recovery, have strengths. I've heard people come into 12-step programs, and the sponsor says, hey, you know what, and the person's like, I don't, open the first page of the text and there's nothing there. That to me is yeah. But everybody has information.
mm,
And guess what? Like a lot of what I do today in early recovery was I had the knowledge of what it meant to be an active addiction, and I just flipped it, and it worked for, recovery. Because you know what? If I wanted something, I was going to get it. And so what did I want? I didn't want to be miserable. I wanted recovery. So I would do anything to get recovery. If I was wanted to get loaded, I would call somebody. It didn't matter what time of day, what state, whatever it was. Stood outside in a phone booth for 3 hours one time in the cold, like, and so I just changed that motivation and used so many of the things. I had a community of people it dwindled, but I had a community of people that showed me how to do the things that I did in active addiction.
Mm.
And I have a community. I mean, I can look on this call right now, and there are so many people that are a part of my community. Whether I talk to them every day or not, they are part of my journey. And so, yeah, I mean, and I'm not one for, if 12 steps work, I'm a product of that, but I want more. I want more. So I find other things to supplement and add to that.
Yeah.
I like Jesse calls it habit stacking, but I just call it more. I have a disease of more, and I can use that to my benefit.
Mm. Yeah, you can add depths and depths and depths
Yeah. And
to it.
so those people are the people that have experienced that. And I do the same thing.
Mm.
I have people that I work with that, they don't know the handholds. They don't know, but there's a line connecting all of us, because guess what? There are days where I slip and I got to hold on to something. And now I got a community, which is my net. So even if I fall and slip a little bit, I got this whole community to catch me.
Mm.
And so really, I think part of my purpose is to really bring this to people, because there's a lot of people down the face of the mountain from me, and I want everybody to get up the mountain.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful analogy, because especially when you're at the bottom, it looks so daunting.
Yeah,
The to surmount the recovery mountain looks so daunting, and I love that. So the group is like the net underneath that can catch,
yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah,
the sponsor or the mentor or the coach or whatever is the
yeah,
person at the top who's kind
yeah,
of guiding you, away from this pitfall or away from
yeah.
that problem. They
And
can.
they put some anchors up, so I'm not dangling, like,
I love that.
so I'm rooted, yeah, yeah,
That's really great. And I know that one of the real strengths of from what you're doing at the moment is the community. Because like you said, there's probably a lot of people that are on this call that are part of your community. And I know that you have, a number of different communities for people that are, just learning spiritual principles, or people that are have been in recovery for a while and are looking to learn how to facilitate recovery in others, and then people that are just seeking recovery. So I can see that community is a big part of what it is that you're building.
yeah. Yeah, well, and it's interesting, because I try to cultivate that community, and it's interesting to see, I reach out to different people, and it's interesting to see some people's reaction of like, and I actually had somebody ask me the other day, is this real? Like, and I'm like, it is real, yeah, most definitely. And because part of it too, I talked to somebody recently about this, is, I don't settle, because like I said, primarily I've been in the 12-step program for most of my recovery, and I still am, but there was some things that weren't being met. And so it's like, I have a need, I have a desire, I have a want. I'm not going to just let that sit.
Mm,
Like, I find ways to cultivate that in other ways.
yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's beautiful. And I know, and one of the things that I love is, actually all the people that are on this call, right? They've gone through their own recovery process, however they got introduced, however they went through their process. But not only did they get better, but now they're like using the same principles that they learned to get better to like thrive in
Yeah,
their life,
yeah.
and to create new things, and to become entrepreneurs. And so I think that's a really powerful message as well.
Well, and I think it most definitely is, and I think the other reason why I really highlighted mindfulness in the work that I do, because I do a lot of other stuff too. I incorporate breath work, and I, a lot of journaling and all the stuff that a lot of the other people have mentioned. But why I really highlighted the mindfulness was, in early recovery, people were like, well, just be here now, don't think about the past, don't think about the future. And someone who has that, just and we try to frame it in certain ways, just for today, which helps ground us, but like, there's not a whole lot of practical advice of, okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not only going to just give you some advice or a suggestion or some ideas of what to do without giving you some practical advice on how to do it.
Yeah. It's so important. I shared in the beginning of this whole live stream that one of the biggest things for me when I first started in the recovery process was, I went to the meetings, and first of all, it was like, I shared, it was like in a basement, people were, I felt like, do I fit in here? And then it was like all this God language, and then like, yeah, the principles. I felt like it was really, it seemed esoteric, and that was a bit of a barrier for me. So
Well, and I had the same experience, but once again, like someone asked me, or like from the very beginning, what would you do to get your substance? And I was like, anything. And they're like, what will you do to recover? And that for me, because I was met with that, I had a real problem with God. I had a problem with the word faith. I had a problem with most everything that a 12-step program had to offer. But I was like, you know what? There's not going to be one of you in this room that's going to keep me from coming. Not one of you. Like, and so like that's where I used my stubbornness to my advantage.
that's awesome.
And some of those people, are not around. Some of them still are around, and I'm friends with them today, and I call them on their BS and they call me on mine. But you know what, like if I have anything to say to anybody in early recovery, like don't let anybody stop you. It's nothing can stop you. The only person that can stop you is you. And like I'm much a proponent for more recovery.
Great.
Yes.
That was going to be my last question, is what you would say to new people into recovery. But I think that's great. And you're right. I think the thing that's beautiful about those traditions and those groups is the authenticity that's in there and the vulnerability that's in there. You're never going to hear people that are just more real about what's up for them than in those rooms and when you're talking to people.
Well, but part of it too is there's a structure to that which is beneficial for some. It may not be beneficial for everybody. So it's like, or you may need to add to it, and so it's like, and I've had this discussion recently with a bunch of my friends that like, the percentage of success rate in 12 steps is very low, but it's higher than anything else.
Right. Exactly.
But it's like when you can give me 100%, I'll stick with you 100%, but like, I'm going to stick with you and continue to do this, but I'm going to find things to supplement and continue my journey process. And that's what I do when I work with people. I meet you where you're at. We find out where you're going to, what you really want, not the surface things, and find the obstacles and find ways to just propel through those obstacles.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And I love, I think it's great what you're saying, because I actually did go out and supplement and find other things. And that actually gave, like I did Course in Miracles, right? And that really gave me an incredible relationship with, God, not as something outside, but as this universal principle of love, which gave me access then going back and seeing the 12-step tradition totally different. And now I see how, just absolutely incredible it actually is. So that supplemental thing can come full circle, and you work on all these different areas, and it enriches all the different areas at the same time. Yeah. Okay, my friend. So your giveaway is a mindfulness-based like journal or a daily.
It's a booklet. So yeah, it's a mindfulness practice for every single day of the week. So it's a lot of things, a lot of comments that people share with me when they first find out about mindfulness. It's like, well, what do I start? And so this is a booklet to get you started. It's short, it's sweet. Each day of the week, it has a brief explanation, a brief practice to begin that process. And then if you want to go deeper, then you can contact me and we'll continue on from there. But it really helps to establish that break, that huge obstacle that people have of where do I start?
Yeah. Awesome. And we put the link, I think, in the, for mindfulrecoverycoach.org. Is that the best place for people to connect with you?
It is. Yeah, that's a great place. Yeah, www.mindfulrecoverycoach.org. That's a great place. You can also email me, which is Lucius, Lucius @mindfulrecoverycoach.org. If you want that, if you don't want to wait through going through the website, if you're like me, and I can put that on there,
Correct.
if you just want to,
you can
get started.
You just want to go right to the source. All right, my brother. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and for for taking the time out and being part of today. And really thank you, like from the very beginning, you were such a motivating force for me, like giving me ideas, reach out to this person, do that. And, with no real skin in the game per se for you, you just really opened up your heart and were part of this process from the very beginning. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, for being here today, but also, being part of the whole process of bringing this together, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Well, hopefully you will enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll do it again, and people can see we did a podcast together as well, so people can go and check out that if they want to get a deeper dive. All right. So last but not least,